joining us now to talk about the college football playoffs, the world of football in general. It's Mike Golic Jr. here with you on your home of the Cowboys. And a good afternoon, sir. How the heck are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
We're doing outstanding now as a Notre Dame alumni, former player. How are you feeling here as we approach kickoff tonight?
Incredibly stressed. A lifetime of being a Notre Dame fan means never being allowed to be comfortable or have complete faith in your team, because you have either, in the case of most fans, been hurt, or in my case as a former player, hurt the fan base before in plenty of instances like this. So I am stress eating currently.
What are you eating?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to manage the healthy stress eating. So I went to Mendocino Farms. I live in Los Angeles now, guys. So I'm taking care of my body. New year, new me, all that good stuff. So nothing really good yet, unfortunately.
Now, speaking of Los Angeles, aren't you somewhat close to the coast?
Yeah, thankfully I am. I'm down near the water and well south of everything that's been going on in terms of the wildfires here. But listen, certainly a chaotic couple of days. I know the Rams and the NFL just put out the statement, exploring their options about what to do in case that Los Angeles and SoFi aren't fit to host a game come Monday between the Rams and the Vikings. And you're talking about a team trying to get ready and prepare for a playoff game while their families, the community they live in, are all dealing with what's gone on here the last 48 hours, which has been, guys, quite unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, I didn't grow up out here, so I certainly haven't been exposed to this before, but just the level of devastation and the helplessness you kind of feel right now is pretty insane.
Yeah, I can imagine. Some of the video has just been surreal. Not a lot going right there in LA, but a lot has gone right for your Irish. What have been the most important developments this year to find themselves in this position after a season where some people were still doubting them?
Yeah, well, I think going all the way back to before the season, it was the depth that this roster had recruited at so many positions across the board. I think back in my Notre Dame lifetime, and one of the things that was always most difficult, well, really two of the things. One was certainly just championship-level depth in general across the board. You look at so many positions this year that were impacted by injury, the offensive line before and at the beginning of the season, the defense really the entirety of the year, and the amount of young players that have been ready to having play is tough, and that's one of the things that I think this team has done incredibly well, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Gojo, I wanted to ask you about the quarterback situation. Riley Leonard, who was great with his legs, they didn't throw for a ton of yards. What are your expectations for him against an outstanding Penn State defense, although Abdul Carter is a game-time decision for this?
Yeah, and that's going to go a long way, right? Because in your game plan for Mike Denbrock, Notre Dame's offensive coordinator, it's, hey, you got to account for 11 every single play in Abdul Carter if he's out there. And so if he's compromised, if he gets banged up during that game, I'm sure you're going to see the offensive game plan shift to reflect that. But, Notre Dame has really been a team, I think, designed to try and help mitigate that all year long with Riley Leonard's legs. You guys know a quarterback that can take off and run and do so as effectively as him, where hell, I'd argue Riley Leonard is the chief threat in the Notre Dame run game while Jeremiah Love is banged up, their all-world running back. And so having him, especially for guys on the edges, to hold it in his own read, to scramble in the passing game as effectively as he does, can just make these guys stop and think. That's all you're really trying to do with pass rushers as potent as Abdul Carter and the rest of this group, is stop them, make them think a little bit as they're on their way to the quarterback. And so that's going to be huge. But Riley Leonard, Notre Dame in this passing attack, I mean, they have been as needed, but not an every down staple, right? Jordan Faison, the Notre Dame lacrosse star turned wide receiver, has been probably their most consistent receiving threat. I would say Mitchell Evans on his best day, their tight end, is a guy who's been dependable for the last couple of seasons for the Irish. And so it's been spot duty for that passing game. But we saw against Georgia, they broke that out on some early downs when they needed to create space against that defense that was suffocating at times. And I have a feeling that's going to have to be more of the case against Penn State as well.
What about the coaching chess match here between Freeman and Franklin? I think Franklin's got a lot of pressure on him.
I think he does, because, I mean, listen, for Notre Dame, they get a lot of credit coming off that Sugar Bowl. You listen to pundits and everyone around the sport, Notre Dame breaking that, almost 3-decade drought of success in major bowl games, 0-8 in the BCS and New Year's 6 games until that one. That win, even though it was against a backup quarterback, gave them a lot of, capital in a lot of people's mind. And for James Franklin, I think he's still searching for that. I don't think the wins against SMU and Boise State resonated in the same way that they would like, and certainly in the way that this Notre Dame game would as a win. And so, listen, I know I'm a Notre Dame fan, and so everything gets filtered through the lens, but I think Marcus Freeman has acquitted himself incredibly well in terms of the in-game coaching prowess this season. More fourth down attempts this year than in his first 2 seasons combined. You've got some high leverage moves in special teams and in some of the hidden yardage situations that have popped up where Marcus Freeman hasn't been afraid to push the gas pedal down in critical situations. And so he understands, hey, with this offense, we got to steal possessions. The defense is going to do some of that, but I've got to manufacture the rest of the head coach, and he's been up to that challenge.
Here in Dallas, all we've been doing is talking about coaches and what's going on with Mike McCarthy, but it seems like Freeman's getting some buzz even in the NFL. What do you think about that? Are you nervous that maybe he leaves?
Not at this point. I mean, just announced the extension before the first-round game against Indiana, so you've got some of that financial incentive there. Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director, made it clear there are no carve-outs here for his alma mater in Ohio State back when people were wondering if Ryan Day's job was secure or not, which, man, feels like an eternity ago based on the way Ohio State's played, but also with the Bears' jobs, getting thrown out there. I remember Peter Schrager had been the one reporting that Chicago had some interest in Marcus Freeman, which, seemed like as much gamesmanship from Marcus Freeman and his camp trying to make sure that pen got put to paper on the deal. But I'm sure the interest is legitimate. Talking to people, that game management is something that NFL, regardless of the differences between college and pro, is what people are looking for. Someone that could come in and manage all the things that come with being the head coach, and knowing that at the NFL level you'd have even less to worry about in the ways of recruiting and all the different avenues that you're responsible for in the college game right now. So I'm not surprised, but I also don't think at this point in Marcus Freeman's coaching life cycle that he's going anywhere right now. He seems very comfortable in South Bend. He really seems confident in what they're building in this program, and I think at least for right now, he wants to see it through while they're close to doing some great things there.
Mike, I've started looking at some tape for the draft, and it's a shame that Benjamin Morrison is not going to be available for you guys, and what a big blow that is. But I'm interested in what you think of potential with the matchup with Xavier Watts and then Tyler Warren at Penn State, the very talented tight end. Is that something that's going to have to be, for Notre Dame to have some success tonight? They're going to have to be able to take care of Warren, the very talented tight end there at Penn State?
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be 2 sets of eyes on him at all time. I'll be curious matchup-wise. Xavier Watts has been at his best when he's patrolling center field. He's such a good eraser of big plays back there, and I wonder if they're going to want to take him out of that role.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame plays more man coverage than anybody, but
right.
Does that job go to a Don Schuler? Does Jordan Clark, who's been the nickelback for them, come in because Tyler Warren is such a prolific pass threat? Does Jack Kaiser moonlight there? I think the honest answer is you're going to throw a little bit of everything at him, much like we talked about with the pass rushers. You don't want a pass catcher to feel like he's got a handle on who he's going up against. You want constant fresh bodies to eliminate the chief threat in that offense, and there's no doubt it's Tyler Warren. I'm sure we'll get some great-on-great matchups of him and Xavier Watts, but I do think it's going to be a by-committee approach there for Al Golden's defense.
It's Mike Golic Jr. here with you on your home of the Cowboys. Are you expecting a defensive, grinded-out type of game? How many points is it going to take to win it this evening?
Yeah, I don't think many. I mean, I'd be surprised if we're dealing in the mid-20s here in points. I think this is a high teens, low 20s game. I think the under at DraftKings right now is 45.5, and I think much like the Georgia game, we are careening towards the under in this one. Penn State's offense been good in the big plays when it comes to, what they do in the run game for that. Ketron Allen, Nick Singleton, 2,000-yard backs, 2 incredibly explosive backs, but their passing game, kind of like Notre Dame's, has struggled to get anything going deep downfield all that consistently outside of Tyler Warren. So I don't see that changing. This Notre Dame secondary has been great. Leonard Moore stepped in really well for Benjamin Morrison and created a really nice young tandem in that secondary. So I think overall this is going to be a game where it's going to be won in the margins. It's going to be which defense can give their offense an extra possession somewhere along the way. And so I've been saying 2017 Notre Dame all day. That feels kind of like the right score here. I don't think either of these teams is going to be able to pull too far away from the other at this point.
How's the action been against the spread? Do we know who the Sharps prefer?
I haven't seen much info on that yet. Was going to check as we got closer to game time just to kind of gauge that, especially for the show tomorrow. But, the way we've seen the line fluctuate, Notre Dame at times was nearing a 2.5-point favorite, almost a 3-point favorite. It's come back down to like that original 1.5-point line. And so it seems pretty evenly split on both sides. I know we had those rumors for a little while about the Notre Dame team having the flu that I think have since been squashed. So thankfully we should get a full good-on-good, strength-on-strength matchup between two teams. Notre Dame against Georgia, it was unfortunate. Carson Beck wasn't out there. You couldn't get that best-on-best game. But here you're going to get it. And listen, who's got more to play for right now, it seems, than Drew Aller on the other side, who after their first couple of games, all of a sudden NFL scouts start talking and saying, hey, maybe if this guy gets hot, it's a weaker quarterback class. He's incredibly gifted. Maybe he comes out all of a sudden and garners a little bit more attention. So I do think both of these sides pretty evenly matched, and I'm sure the numbers will reflect that.
Well, damn it, Gojo. I think we got ball sacked on that flu bug as well with the Fighting Irish. So thank you for that clarification. Yep, that's how that internet goes these days. What do you think about the Horns and the Buckeyes tomorrow? And I did see some odds. Notre Dame, the favorites, if Quinn Ewers goes into the portal.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Marcus Freeman came out earlier in the year and said they weren't going to be dipping into the transfer market again. Maybe a different opportunity presents itself and those things change. They were excited about C.J. Carr on that roster, I know, who dealt with an elbow injury behind the scenes this year. That I'm not breaking any news there. That's well documented. I just mean the fact that his status for game day wasn't in question because he wasn't in playing. But I think for Texas and Ohio State, Texas is the one team talent-wise on the roster that I think if they play their best day is best situated to go toe-to-toe with Ohio State. Problem is we haven't seen that in a while. Quinn Ewers been dealing with some injuries the back half of the season that have been well documented. The offensive line, which sounds like it's going to be a little healthier going into this game, has struggled to kind of get a consistent ground game going in this postseason run. And so to do that against an Ohio State team that just has it firing on all cylinders right now since they got their O-line sorted out after all the injuries, and now that group has had time to gel together, I think if they're playing their best football, Ohio State's going to be damn near impossible to stop, as we've seen.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned the offense and defensive lines, but I was curious about in the secondary, the challenges that the Texas secondary is going to have with this Ohio State receiving corps.
Yeah, there's just too many good options. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, there's like the point in every season. I remember our coaches would always say you're like 7-8 games in, and the freshmen that have been playing at that point, they're like, you guys aren't freshmen anymore. Right. We expect you to go out here and get the job done because you've got the reps and experience. And Jeremiah Smith, you saw the confidence in him leading into the playoffs of a guy that had all those reps under his belt and now felt like he was seeing the game much better. And that shows. So when you've got one of the most unique mismatches in the sport on your side, and then Emeka Egbuka, and then on down the list, Carnell Tate and all these guys that you've got as options, and then the running backs coming out of the backfield, it's like a game of whack-a-mole that you seemingly can't win if you can't get to the quarterback and if Will Howard's not going to make mistakes and turn the ball over the way he hasn't through these first couple of games. And so it's the full totality of that $20 million worth of player that we heard about them buying this offseason. That talent's finally had a chance to show up because the foundation's been so secure. And that's before we talk about the defense that's been playing like the best unit in the sport right now.
Gojo, how do you take in a big Notre Dame game like tonight? Will you be sports barring it, or do you lock yourself alone in a room and scream at your television? How do you go about this?
I am the latter. I am not fit for public consumption during Notre Dame games. I am the worst version of myself. I turn into a gremlin. I hate myself during Notre Dame games and what I put my family and loved ones through. So I try and be around as few people as possible because there are very few people that have the clearance level to be around and tolerate me during this game and still love me when they see me the next day.
Oh, that is
man!
amazing.
I think if you live streamed it, you're looking at a million at least.
Easy.
I'm probably looking at not having a job come Monday of my life. So this is self-preservation.
Do you go full homer or highly critical or a little of both? Just give us a window into that.
Yeah, I would say highly critical. I ride the roller coaster, man, because I always tell people I was a fan before I was a football player at Notre Dame, and now I'm a fan after I was done playing. And that fan brain, as we know, highly irrational. And so I am riding the roller coaster here. I am incredibly Jessica Smetana over at the Dan Lebitard Show, who's a great job as their producer there and is on air all the time. Me and her have a text thread going during these games where our worst reactions go in there, our deepest, saddest thoughts and all the things that we don't want to tweet all go in there. So it's important to have that relationship in your life with a friend where you can go and you can both commiserate together and not lose your jobs in the process.
Gojo, don't want to put you in a bad spot here, but we did have an awesome moment last year with you and Zach Martin. We got to have Zach Martin on our show as our weekly player guest, and there's some rumors this might be it, and certainly not the way we wanted to see Zach Martin go out with the injury there. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk about him, but do you think he does give it another run? And if not, I mean, if you want to just reflect on him and what an amazing career it's been.
Yeah, I don't know what the decision process will be like for Zach right now. He's an incredible competitor and a guy that I'm sure wanted to see it out and bring a championship to Dallas as a part of this team since he got there, where he's been one of the faces of this franchise here. If it is the end, and again, I know nothing about the decision. I don't have any insight here other than if it is the end here, I mean, one of the 2 or 3 greatest interior offensive linemen I've seen in my lifetime, probably one of the 3, at least on the Mount Rushmore of offensive guards and interior offensive linemen in the league's history, just banner of consistency, really his entire time. He's an unreal teammate. He is one of the guys to his core, despite the fact that he's been such an exemplary player, and for so many people that look up to him and use him as, this archetype of what it's supposed to be like. When you're playing offensive line, it's be seen, not heard. It's be so efficient that people don't even notice you. And Zach somehow got noticed for that. He was that good at it for so long. So he's an incredibly balanced, incredibly smart, disciplined player who showed up for his teammates, who battled through injury for this team, and is going to look great in that gold jacket 5 years to the day from whenever he does decide to hang it up. So one of my favorite teammates, I mean, the best football player I have ever played with or against is hands down Zach Martin. And so it'll be a sad day for football when that guy's gone, because getting to watch him go out there and strap it up, the warrior that he was always a ton of fun, and playing with him was an honor and something I'll get to tell my kids about one day when you show highlights of him from back in the day, road grading people on the field for the Cowboys.
So if things go your way tonight for you and Zach and everybody with Notre Dame, will you be pulling for Texas hard tomorrow, thinking Ohio State's just too much?
I think, listen, Texas, again, if they beat Ohio State, they're going to pull out some wild stuff, and that would be a certain challenge there. But, yeah, at this point, if I'm gaming this out for the best possible outcome, people always say you want to beat the best. No. I want the best possibility of winning. I didn't want to play Alabama in 2012. I knew what they were capable of. I wish we were playing Kansas State in that game. So, yeah, I would say Texas is probably the lesser of two evils, even knowing full well that's a very good football team, and Notre Dame would have a long day with either one of them.
And if it's Ohio State, can you get up to believe in that one, or would you just think, man, it's great we made the title game?
I think you can find a path to victory there. And listen, we know Ohio State, even with this great roster, is capable of putting out a clunker there. It would probably take them playing a little bit less than their best day. But at this point, I have learned not to doubt the power of Al Golden and that Notre Dame defense especially. Those guys have been up to the challenge every step of the way. The offense has taken their cues from them and responded accordingly. So I can drink enough Kool-Aid to figure out and find a path to victory almost anywhere. I'm sure I'd do it again if they find their way to Atlanta.
I love it, man. I hope you have the best time. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks, guys. Always fun.